And would you be happy to share what's the best piece of advice you've ever had?
Yeah, actually, it's tough to nail it down to one because
You
I
can have
think,
more than one if you really
can I
want
have
to.
more than one? I'm going to take two off you if that's okay, if I may. I'm trying to get up to 10-minute video clip, YouTube clip here. That's the goal. So I'm going to try and take as many as I can. I think there's, the two main things for me are both come out of books. The first one came out of a book called The Science of Getting Rich by a guy called Wallace D. Wattles. It was written in like 1892 or something like that. So it's a really old book. And it's actually quite sexist. And the name's terrible. The title's terrible, especially in the modern age where being rich is like frowned upon or whatever. But it's a really good book. And it's definitely worth a listen or a read or whatever. And there's a bit in that where it's a case of, like achieving any kind of goal is essentially guaranteed as long as you have more successful actions in the achievement of that goal than unsuccessful actions in the achievement of that goal. And as soon as you kind of understand that, it kind of makes sense that, as long as you're compounding successful actions on top of each other over a period of time, even if you're like the most unlucky person on the planet, eventually it has to end up working out. So then the whole thing kind of comes back to like, okay, how many successful actions am I having in a day or in a week or in a month or whatever that thing is? So then you start having a look at how you're actually measuring or recording what actions you're taking. Now, I'm not like a really fastidious person, so I'm not going to note every single one down, but I have a few things that I try and use to like ensure that I'm having more successful actions in any given day than unsuccessful. And then I can kind of sign that day off and say, okay, that was a successful day. And then if I have more successful days in a week than a successful week, and so on and so forth. And I think that was the thing for me that, like allows you to go, okay, I cocked that one up. That was an unsuccessful action. Like if you can measure that against 3 successful actions that you've had in that given day, then you can kind of accept cocking one up and move on and not really worry about it too much,
A bit like golf.
Very much so. It's a great metaphor for life, Steve, golf. There's a lot of good things to be done to get out of golf. But we won't get to the whole podcast.
You've never seen me play golf, Doug. I'm saying.
I'll learn a lot about you from playing golf with you, though,
You probably will.
So it is very much like golf. It's a case of compounding. If you hit a bad shot, just don't compound it with another bad one. Go and have a good one after it, So that's a big thing for me. And then my second one is actually out of a book by Rob Moore, who's a big property guy. He's an interesting chap, and you'll probably have seen him because he loves smashing stuff all over the social media and everything. And he wrote a book on money, which I read / listened to, can't really remember now. And one of the main questions in that is like, what is money? Mm-hmm. And it was the most easy definition for it is that it's a store of value. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that's really interesting, really. So you can kind of say that, you go back to, you can kind of go back to what you were saying a little while ago there about, when you get a little bit bigger and you've got money that you can actually use to kind of invest in different places. So it basically means if you've got some money stored in value, you can use that money to go and get someone to provide you some value that you can go out and use elsewhere in the world, So the real easy sum for that for me is just if you want more money coming this way towards you, you need to provide more value to the world that way, and money will come back in the opposite direction. And all the profit and loss really is the difference between the value that you or your company or your businesses provide the world minus the amount of value the world provides you or your businesses, and the bit in the middle should be your profit. So if you're providing the world more value than the world's providing you, you'll make some profit in the top. And I think that really, for me, the two things about compounding successful actions over time and understanding the provision of value and managing fair exchange, that then basically means that if every deal you do, there is a fair exchange of value and it's measured, and you compound those one on top of the other on top of the other over a period of time, success has to, or profitability, or a successful business has to be the result of that, as long as you compound that over a long enough period of time. And I think the difference there is some people don't realize how long that has to be sometimes.
Or they spend their money on the wrong stuff.
Yeah, or spending, and you've got to accept that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have unsuccessful actions in that, or and that's going to slow things down. And if you want it really quickly, you just have to have more successful actions, managing fair exchange, value exchange through fair exchange, more in a given day, a given time, you'll get there a little bit quicker. And I think that for me was kind of a real turning point, because it allowed me to understand that in any deal, I have to be just as careful that the other person's getting a win as I'm getting a win. And you don't know if that other person's looking after your side as well as they're looking after your side, but you can know that you're looking after both sides. Like, you can know that you're making sure that they're getting a win, and you can also make sure that you're getting fair exchange on your side as well. And I think if you manage both of those and you compound that successful actions over time, it's very hard to go wrong on a long enough timeline.
Was it one of the things I have on my desk? I can't reach it from here, but it's a photo frame. And basically with the course, we call them lead actions, but it's all the things I know where I want to be in 5-10 years time. And one of them, basically I have a list, I think it's about 12 different things. And if I do one of those every day, it's exactly what you're saying, but they're quite strategic. I'm going to get to where I want to be. And one of them is inviting people to be on the podcast. And it's that kind of thing of when it's a Tony Robbins thing, but almost I set the standard that I do this as long as I can every Monday. And then in time, in 5 years time, it might be quite popular, but it's that kind of thing of the more you can actually track down, it's like going to the gym, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's important. So many sports metaphors.
So Johnny Wilkinson's book, he has a thing where he imagines that there's a film crew following him around and they're filming his entire day. And at the end of every day, he has to sit down and sign off his day in his head and say, okay, I had enough kicks at goal and I did enough whatever and I lifted enough weights in the gym. He has to sign his day off. So I kind of pinch that a little bit.
That's funny.
And I have a diary where every morning I have to write out my to-do list and set 3 main things that I'm going to do that day. And if I achieve those 3 main things, I'm allowed to sign the day off. And if I don't, then I'm not. And I don't do that every day, because sometimes I get caught up with stuff and I forget about it and I don't beat myself up about it. But as long as I do it more days and I don't, then I've got a good chance of getting there. And I think depending on the personality type, and I'm a little bit more big picture and like protagonist than I am than an analyst or anything like that, then just enough to kind of fit your personality types right, or seems to be right for me anyway.
Oh, cool. The other question I like to ask is, if you were to give advice to your younger self, and it could be the lad that got expelled from school, it could be the guy at Leeds, it could be the guy trying to flog surfboards in Egypt, or even you when you're at the pub when you thought you'd run out of money. If you were to give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I'd probably say just don't worry so much, to be honest with you. And like the main thing about starting White Digital is that, like I said, I was never really happy in all those kind of roles before. So I wanted to provide an environment where people actually enjoyed coming to work and they weren't clock watching and I think all the things that go into that is like, feeling comfortable about your income and feeling comfortable about the workplace and knowing that you're going to be respected and trusted and all that kind of thing. And really, I realised one day that it was really all about alleviating worry for people. Like it's like making sure that Mark, my lead developer, he's not stressed because he's got too much work on, or he doesn't know what project he's working on Tuesday at 2:00. Like everything really is in an effort to alleviate worry. And I think that's probably the same with most things that we do, to be honest with you, is all in an effort to alleviate worry. And I think the things that I worried about was that, I wasn't going to make it, or that I didn't know what I wanted to do, or why I wasn't motivated to do better at this thing, or I wasn't, and I worried about everything all of the time. But then funny enough, when I kind of got to an age where I was ready, which lucky enough wasn't as old as I could have been, although if I'm going to beat myself up, it was still too late in my life. I wish I'd started when I was 18 rather than 28 or whatever, but 'tis what it is. But yeah, I wish I didn't worry so much. So just maybe have a little bit of faith that, if you compound successful actions over a long enough period of time, it's very hard to cock it up. So just don't worry, because you'll get there eventually.